All right, good evening, everybody. Let's get started. Start on time. Hopefully end at a decent time. All right, so it's a new year. I was on Zoom at the last meeting, so I didn't get to go over some of these things. So I want to welcome you guys, and I want to go over some of the rules of decorum, not just for council, but for everybody else in the chamber. So the use of cell phones and electronic equipment is prohibited in the city council chambers during meetings, except for purposes explicitly authorized by state code, section 551.023. And I wanted to mention that in our code of ordinances, says members of the public shall not engage in any of the following in the meeting room during a city council meeting: shouting, unruly behavior, distracting side conversations, speaking out when another person is talking, defamation, intimidation, personal affronts, profanity, or threats of violence, use of phones, pagers, radios, computers, or other electronic equipment, booing, hissing, foot stomping, ripping of paper, signing, or other similar behavior that impedes or disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. And please let me remind council, please do not disturb another member while they're speaking. If they ask you a direct question, then you may answer it and then turn it back over to them. All right, so rules of decorum. Let's move on. Let's get started. Just allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you. Okay, we have a quorum this evening. Jerry Johnson is absent due to medical reasons. Gio, proof of notice.
Thank you, Mayor. The notice of this meeting was posted by 2 p.m. on Friday, January 13th.
Okay, thank you, Gio. Do we have any public comments?
We do not.
All right, no presentations, recognitions, or proclamations. So let's move on to the city mayor report. Okay, so I just wanted to go back over the water leaks that we had on December 25th and January 1st. Our water department did an outstanding job with both of them. They had assistance with the gas department for the December 25th leak and also APD. I'm forever grateful for everything that they did. Christmas Day, it was cold and they were standing out there up to their waist in water trying to repair that. And that kind of leads into the infrastructure. The infrastructure has been neglected for a long time. And it's time for us to look at it seriously. The previous utility director, who retired on Friday, had this quote. He said, both of the major pipeline failures, January 1st and December 25th, appear to come from improper bedding of the pipelines during construction and ground upheaval from tremors, which created tremendous stress on the lines until the point of catastrophic failure. So there may be more, and we may have these more frequently, more boil water notices, which I don't think any of us would say is fun. He said that the improper bedding of the pipelines and aged or deteriorating main materials will continue to result in catastrophic failures in the future. And I would presume that they will happen more frequently as well. Okay, it's time for us to do something about this. We need to get it going. All right, and then I also wanted to thank Dr. Reinhardt for everything that she did. She got the Ector County ISD, Dr. Scott Murray, and Midland ISD, Dr. Stephanie Howard. They reached out and got some water donations to us. She was in Midland at the time, and she brought them back using the Suburban. So I'm forever grateful for her for that. And then also Stephanie Elmore, who has helped us with the Brewster County Hyper Reach. It's like a reverse 911. We put the link up on the screen at the last city council meeting, and now you can go to the City of Alpine website, and under How Do I, You can click on that. Everybody needs to sign up for that messaging system. It doesn't just happen automatically. You need to sign up for it. So I want to thank her, the West Texas Food Bank, and all the employees who helped out, and the citizens. The residents have been very understanding, especially as we kept this updated. They like the regular frequent updates and the pictures too. Then they see what kind of conditions our employees are working with when there's some kind of catastrophic failure, whether it be water or gas or whatever it might be. They like that. So that's an important thing to do. All right, so and then the citizens who came out and brought pecan pies and hot chocolate and stuff like that. Thank you guys. We have a wonderful city. All right, I'll be quiet now and pass it on to the city attorney.
Mayor and council, I want to kudos to the chief of police. We've been working, the municipal court's been working with him and the police department on the warrant roundup. It's been very effective on trying to move cases along at the municipal court. It's amazing how this little reminder that they get on the newspaper gets everybody to suddenly pay attention to that ticket that's been neglected for months or years. And we getting rid of a lot of old cases and bringing in some fine money and some other collections at the city. But it mainly lets us keep moving things along in this court, and not let cases get old and not let cases get tired like they used to be. Municipal court's working well. We have an excellent court clerk, and the judge is very attentive to everything. So I appreciate all of that. We had a meeting last week regarding the Skyway Gardens issue, and everybody's going to try to work together to try to come up with a solution. As you all know, there's been an issue where they haven't paved the road that they were supposed to have paved for the last 3+ years, but they want to now perhaps do some expansion there. So suddenly they do want to be friendly with the city and try to work with us to see if they can maybe do both, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But they'll continue to work with Megan and city staff on that. So at least we're getting a little bit of progress there. So other than that, no other major issues from my perspective for the city.
Thank you. All right, city manager, your turn.
Can I ask that under the staff updates that the gas department report be included with mine? Are you guys okay with that? They're in training, so I have their information.
Okay.
So if it goes a little longer, you know why. Okay, let me just get my screen up here. So it is a little bit of a lengthy report, but I won't be reading everything.
Okay.
The first thing that I wanted to bring up is poor Gio. I like to give him more work. I appreciate it. We have a very usable city website, and so we are moving forward with providing more and more information. And one of those things are FAQs, frequently asked questions. In all of our fun events the past few weeks, I have been working with other cities and kind of getting an idea of, let's get the information out there. What are some samples? What have you done? What works? What doesn't work? Frequently asked question pages seem to help a lot of the cities, especially on the bigger items. One of the big ones are boil notices. Pretty much all of the cities I reached out to all have a boil notice frequently asked question. They take TCEQ's information and then they kind of break it down into those questions and answers so that people can, how long do I have to boil my water? When can I stop boiling my water? What if I'm a restaurant? Things that as we were going through this event, we're like, well, that's a good question. Let me do a little research. So it's taking all of that information and providing it in a frequently asked question page, a simple one page. When you go onto the website, it would pop it up, but it wouldn't be just under our frequently asked question section. It would also be under the departmental section. So there's multiple ways to get to it. but it will help assist residents and businesses with direct answers. And then basically all the feedback from all the things residents were asking. It's all those questions that they were asking during the whole time that I made notes that I took down. The mayor would be like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? So that when it happens again, which it's Monday, guys.
Yeah.
It eventually will.
Yeah.
That we have those answers available faster. And it's something that could be quickly shared on Facebook, through our PD page, through our mayor, and of course on our website. Another big one that is coming down the pipeline is we did just pass our noise ordinance. And so we're gonna have a lot of residents ask, well, who's violating it? How do I report a violation? How do I qualify for a permit? What's the decibels? How do they read the decibels? All of that information in a short, simple one pager that they can go on and ask. We do have exceptions to our ordinance if you're a live music venue, but there's still some regulations with that as well. It's not a free-for-all. This would provide the guidance to the public to report concerns. It would provide the guidance to our businesses who operate live music venues, but it would also provide hot guidance. The hotel occupancy tax awards. I want to have an event and it's a one-time thing. I'm not really a music venue, but I want to have music. How do I go about? So we're working on that one as well. Chris Rugia, Daryl and I met, and we're getting the application put together, the permit put together, so that as we start, putting all this information out there, they're fully aware. All of the departments that this will affect is code enforcement, environmental services, our utilities and utility billing, finance, administration, public works, animal control. They're all open to how do I's, or what about this, or if I want to, become a vendor. Adelina does a wonderful job posting all of her information out there, but we still get the when's bulky pickup. We even handed out magnets and we still get the when's bulky pickup. Who do I call? How many items can I have? What's allowed? What's not allowed? But hopefully providing additional resources for them to answer those questions. And then a whole section on just general information, contact information. Ms. Rodriguez, you provided us some new contact information for hospice. How do I find someone with hospice? Is there someone in Alpine? Having that kind of leeway to help people find access to these resources. And it's not just city resources, but the resources that the city can provide in general. Volunteering. We love volunteers. Our animal shelter could love some dog walkers and people who just have a free Saturday to go clean up, the animal cages. And then general public safety. It's hard when you have a resident who really wants to contact the police, 911. That's how I know I'm going to get a hold of them. But it's also making sure that they understand there's a non-emergency number. And maybe it's not the police department I need to contact. Maybe it is code enforcement. It's something completely different, but it's providing some of those resources and answers. So for the past 2 weeks, we've been working on this to get it set up so we can start launching it. Slowly, we'll start adding more and more to it. We think it will be a great resource for our residents, travelers coming through town, providing some extra guidance. Our airport. Our lighting project it's a big project and we're really excited. A little background, this project was originally awarded in 2020 with the phase 1 of designing. We did accomplish that and we're in the phase 2. Unfortunately, our initial start time was in January of 2023. We did have a conference call. Where are we at? Are you ready to come to Alpine? What can we do to help you? And our contractor and vendor who's doing this project was like, you know what? We don't have all the materials. So for us, it was a really hard conversation with, okay, we don't want you to start the project and then stop the project because you're waiting for light bulbs, you're waiting for a specific glass fixture that only one company apparently can manufacture. So instead of doing that, the project was delayed. We have been sending out notifications. As soon as we learn, we try to get it out. Able did send out the second notification for the delay and then requested the emails. We do not have access to everyone's emails when it comes to who leases or who's actually under the contract for our hangars. So hopefully he's getting some good feedback on that so we can get it out faster. I know AeroCare has been kind of weekly emailing me like, hey, what's going on? And it's the same information we're providing everyone. Unfortunately, it's delayed. We do not have a tentative start date. We're hoping March of 2023. Once we know more, we get it right out to the public. Abel puts the letter together. We'll be sending it by email as well. Our next tentative meeting is January 25th. It's another check-in with where are we at? Are the materials coming in? Initially, they were going to bring the materials and set them out at the airport, but it's kind of been trickling down. We're not getting them as fast as we thought we would, but I do want everyone to be aware that the project is still going to happen. The time frame just keeps changing, unfortunately. We did we did ask that, once we have that official start date, let's plan it. Let's figure out what days we're going to be open, what days we're going to be closed, so that we can start getting that information out pretty fast. Like I said, AeroCare really is on top of it to make sure that they know those exact dates. Utilities department. So before Keith left, I asked him, hey, can you do your council report even though you're not going to be here? And then I took his information and put it in mine. His last slide, it's a big thank you to Keith Seeger for his time at the city of Alpine. We wish him the best of luck. And he is on to his next adventure. So he put this in his slideshow about what he plans to do moving forward. And as you can tell, it's going to be some traveling. I believe he is going to head up north towards Wyoming for some hunting and relaxation. And so I wanted to give out a big thanks to him for his time here. Part of his report also included a big shout out to his team. We do thank them. They have been little appreciation here and there, some catered meals. I know they've done a few potlucks, a few barbecues, just to show them that we really do appreciate them. And then that is kind of the current team. There has been an individual who has left and 2 have joined, but that was the most recent updated photo of the department. Christmas Day water main break. Just another little update on it was off of Highway 118 in front of the DEA building. It was due to proper embedding. It was a big leak. It was a very noticeable leak, but they did their best. They worked long hours. They worked long days to ensure that they got it fixed. It did result in a boil notice when we couldn't get the water to slow down. And so we did have to shut it off. And that's the second day. That was the first attempt in getting the pipe secured in place. The couplings, one of them didn't seal correctly. And so everyone was showered. I can't offer that as a free benefit, free showers, but it was definitely a wet job. The Country Club Estates. This was the second big one that happened in a short period of time. If you've been out to Country Club Estates, Los Ranchos is on one side of that hill. Country Club comes around on the other side. It was in the hill part of it. The water main actually comes back around to service that area. If you'll notice, it was a very interesting, nice, long 7.5 foot crack. The water just kind of did a little water fountain effect there and came out. This one was a little bit harder because we do have to wait for 811 out of Odessa. And so when you call them at 10 o'clock, they kind of ask if it's an absolute emergency. If not, then they come the next morning. So we did have to wait for everything to be cleared. There is utilities besides water and wastewater and gas in the ground. There's also electricity. So we don't want them opening up the ground and risking their lives to make the repairs, but they did get it repaired. Moving forward, so the utility department is currently without a director of utilities. Our building official Andrew Devaney has stepped in to manage the employees. As part of his stepping in, he has jumped on board with equipment evaluation, training, list of the current projects, and getting the TCQ updates. He kind of hit the ground running. If you have not seen on Sol Ross, they are digging up a section of that street close to the American Legion and the utility department itself. There was a sewer backup over the weekend. Unfortunately, it did not go as easily as they thought it would. Part of the equipment got stuck in the sewer line. And so in order to get it out, they have to dig up the road. They don't want to cut the hose that's connected to the jetter. They need to figure out really what's going on with that section of piping. It could not only be a clog, but they want to ensure that there's nothing else wrong with the line. So they've been working on that all day today. And then I kind of wanted to give a rundown of all the employees. I know one of the concerns when we lose a director is our licenses. And it is a big concern. I think anyone who's ever been in that department or this position is like, ooh, what do we do? So in our water side, Johnny Marcus has a Class C groundwater. Anthony Marcus has a Class D groundwater, needs one more elective and then can test for his C. The rest of the employees, JT, Aaron, Miguel, Diego, Dominic, Cassandra, and Annette are all in the training phase. Ideally, we do request employees within the first 12 months of employment to get their certification. We have a little few employees who've exceeded that, but we're getting them back on track, getting them signed up for the required TCEQ courses in order to test for their D. TCEQ does require that we have certain levels of certification on both the water and wastewater. So currently we are covered on the water. The wastewater environmental services, Richard Wiley has a C wastewater treatment. Caitlin Hardy has a B wastewater treatment and a C surface water. So the B is required for a permit for TCEQ, which we are covered. She does manage all of the reporting and ensures that we're on top of things. A little secret that people probably don't know is Adelina Bill has her MSW operator A. So that's heading towards the landfill. She knows what can go and can't go. She is required to maintain it with some continuing education, and she does that over a 2-year period. So we are very excited. And then she has Zachary Romero assisting her full-time, and then Frank Bronco assisting part-time. So the staffing is building up. So TCEQ, when I found out about the resignation retirement, I did respect Keith's decision and waited a few days. And then of course, Monday, December 26th, I contacted TCEQ and let them know that we did lose our utility director, but we wish them the best of luck. But what do we need to do? How do we ensure that TCEQ doesn't, oh, no utility director, let's go visit them. He promised me they don't do that, which is good to know. But we did discuss the current status of our water and wastewater licensing. He does not foresee any issues as long as we maintain what we currently have in place. But we really need to continue to communicate. The fact that we reach out and we let them know, hey, this is what's going on. How are we covered? What do we need to do? We basically opened up our doors and said, we're not hiding anything, help us. We discussed improving our partnership with TCEQ moving forward. The biggest thing for the regional and state level is the communication, providing them all of our ups and downs. Ultimately, they're here to help us. I think the city, unfortunately, had a few conflicts with issues we do have at our wastewater treatment plant, and it created a little bit of lack of partnership, but we're back on track to building that. He did explain all of the reporting that is required for wastewater and water. There is monthly, quarterly, and annual reporting. He provided some insight on that. I do have access through one of their secure websites to do the water reporting. Priscilla is working on having access. And then we also have Caitlin, who has the wastewater treatment side. He provided me all the contact information needed at the regional level and the state level for any odd question we have. And I asked some odd ones. Caitlin did a wonderful job to provide a calendar of deadlines. I know a lot of times you'll see a notice go in the paper that, we failed to do. When we do miss certain reports, we are required by TCEQ and state law to post that we failed to submit that report and kind of explain why. 9 out of 10 times it's because we just missed the deadline. TCEQ is probably one of the few that is like 12:01 and you're penalized. They don't give you a couple leeway days. So knowing the exact dates things are due, we can ensure that you're not getting those notices. We did have one that came down in November where we were required to post it. There wasn't anything wrong with our water system. We missed a reporting deadline, but we were doing all the work. We just didn't submit it. So Caitlin does have the list of all the wastewater. There are quite a few with those that are required to be turned in. And then TCQ has assisted with knowing the water. We do have our consumer report coming up, and then we have our annual report as well. Licensing, I think it doesn't matter what entity you talk to, they're all going to tell you, you need to get your licenses. You need to continue with your training. We are switching gears and actively training and providing those training. We've looked at all of the options. Of course, they suggest all of the TEAC schooling, and you have, TCQ provides some, and there's regional groups that provide it. We have to ensure that they're all TCQ backed, so that they can get the credit for their licenses and so that they can actually test. We currently have a couple on the calendar to start testing. We'd hope to get one in this week. Unfortunately, he got sick and he wasn't able to do it, but he's not out of it. He still has to go and get the training. So we're excited to start, getting them all in that basic water course so that they can understand what they're doing and why it's important. But also we're going to start cross training. The department had been divided: operations, distribution, and wastewater. We really feel, speaking with Andrew, that moving forward, we want to make sure that they know all sides. Because right now there's really not many employees who can back up. You have very few who can back up one side of the water department because they don't know SCADA, they don't know chlorine, they don't know the ins and outs of the wells to know what they're doing when they're out there. So giving them that little bit of extra, and it comes with the merit. They get a merit raise, they excel, they move up in their testing. So we're really excited about that. So before we go into the whole next section, we are okay with TCQ. They're not going to come in. He actually was, Arturo was very open and forthcoming with some information, including, hey, I think we're going to be out there at the end of February, beginning of March, just a heads up. So they're already actively helping us and saying, hey, don't stress, don't worry. This is what we're looking for. Where are you at? So we're already kind of building that partnership so that when they do come out here, not only do we kind of know what we're already going to get dinged on, but we can start building up that documentation, say, look, we're trying. Just like everyone else, materials are hard to get in, contractors are hard to get in. So the next section, I really just like this quote when I think of the legislation in Texas. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. It is probably one of my favorite quotes when it comes to just anything in life. The reason why I associate it with legislation is we are in the 88th session of legislation, and there are over 7,000 proposed bills. They're doing. Legislation is always kind of a stressful time when I think about all of the things that can affect the city. There are currently, like I said, over 7,000 bills being proposed. Over 2,000 of those can and may affect cities. They can affect the cities on numerous different levels. Some can require mandated expenditures where we have to come in, like lead and copper that came down from the federal to the state, where we have to pay for it. There's some unmandated. Some will affect us hardly at all. Others will impact us greatly. The reason why I wanted to put this out there, not only for the public, but for the council as well, is this is something that's always updated and going on. And last session, they had 3. It wasn't just one legislation meeting. They actually had 3, and each one came down with different bills. So in my off time, I like to go online and look up all the bills and see what's funny and what's not funny and what's going to impact us. If you ever need some reading material, I'd suggest reading some of our House bills. TML, which we are a member of, is the Texas Municipal League. They actively support the cities all over the state of Texas, especially those that are members. And I kind of wanted to break down, they work on our behalf, and we kind of tell them what we want. So some of their priorities during this legislation are things like work to defeat bills that erode the ability of cities to issue debt. That's always on the top of the list with the state, you know, like, we don't want you to go out for more debt because the state wants to go out for more debt. Erode municipal authority related to development matters. Defeat bills that preempt municipal authority in general. Erode the authority of the city to be adequately compensated for use of its right of ways, or erode authority over the management and control. Currently, you know, we do have some control of our right of ways and what we can and can't be put in them. Limit or prohibit the authority of city officials to use municipal funds to communicate with legislators. Abolish the concept of ETJs. So these are kind of some of the things they've been looking at during this legislative session. So I've broken down with the help of TML. They do a little presentation, kind of giving us updates as we go along. And I gave you kind of like the broad, these are a bunch coming down the pipeline that they think are important. Some will impact Alpine, some of them won't. Some of the big ones is, of course, the preemption of that the city can't regulate commerce. So this is a big one. You can't basically regulate what comes into the city, no matter what. Some of the funny ones, I think this is in a kind of a, I don't know how to word this properly. The price of eggs has gone up, so now there's legislation saying you can have 6 chickens. Kind of the reaction to that price increase. I hope that's not the case, but there is 2 legislative laws coming down or being proposed that regulate chickens, that everyone will be able to have 6 chickens. We currently don't have that as a big impact on our city because we do allow, but look at the bigger cities who have stricter rules when it comes to chickens. Some of that is also tied to being able to grow certain fruits, vegetables, having solar, wind power connected to your gardens, that kind of thing. Another big one that's coming down is some gas powered equipment that the city can't regulate gas powered appliances. No ifs, ands, or buts. We can't regulate gasoline powered landscaping equipment. So some of the things that we've seen in the past is when a business comes in and they want to operate like a little repair shop, and they're going to repair small engines, and how does that affect? A lot of the other ones coming down that they bring up, of course, is in regards to employment practices, recovery houses, can't give universal basic income. There's a lot of these, and I just want to kind of go through them real fast. Land use. This is a big one. City can't impose prerequisites or conditions to filing a plan or a plat. City must allow a building owner to immediately repair damaged residential property if they apply for an emergency permit. We don't have an emergency permit, so something that we would update our ordinance to possibly include. Some of the other ones that will greatly affect the city on this one is House Bill 1246 is the automatic disannexation if the city does not provide full municipal services to an area. So this is not just current annex, this is all annexed. So if there are areas of our town that we are not currently providing all of our services, water, wastewater, sanitation, roads, fire, police, EMS, as of 12/31/2023, they will be de-annexed from the city of Alpine. This is a big one. Our east side of town, past the Holland Hotel, we do not provide sewer service. They're annexed and part of the city limits, but we do not provide them sewer service. So if this law in particular does pass, we could lose all of that section and they would become county. So that's a big impact when you look at the type of businesses that are out there. They are primarily commercial. So something
All
that
the way Oasis Tire, McCoy.
Tractor Supply, McCoy's, Dairy Queen, WTG Fuels, those are all in the city currently and would become de-annexed. The only way if this law does pass would be able to provide those services pretty fast. If they have not been provided because the city hasn't had the revenue or the possibility of actually extending that sewer line out to that side of town. So it's also kind of important to understand as we annex and we look at future growth of the city, is you have a section of town that has been part of the city for some time that we haven't provided the services. So when we look at continuing to grow our boundaries, we need to also look at how do we fix that for them. That's a big one on my agenda, my plate, to make sure I monitor and keep track of, look at any of the changes that are made to it. All of this is outlined on their website. You can see all the steps to it, any changes that get made to it. The other one that's a big one is limiting the extent of the city's ETJ. ETJ comes up regularly when you look at legislation. Now they're kind of looking at reducing what is allowable ETJ. So if you have certain population, it determines the mile outside your city boundaries, what is considered an ETJ. This would reduce it. So if you currently have a 5 mile, it would bring it back to, I believe, a 1 mile, really reducing what you currently have available in regards to an ETJ. And then there's a bunch more out there. There are several on permitting, concrete batch plants, just things that any legislator kind of wants to address or put up. It's been categorized under there. Property tax. This is, of course, a never-ending category. We used to be able to raise our property taxes by 8%. Legislation passed a bill that reduced it to no more than 3%. Which was a severe cap on a lot of cities who always went that 8%. So there are 20+ appraisal cap bills being filed. There is a bill for mandatory sales price disclosure. When you sell a property, you would be required to release what it's being sold for. Changing the homestead exemption between 5 and 25% for an average homestead value in the county. Mandatory tax freeze for elderly disabled homesteads for city taxes. I thought this one was interesting, to make the chief appraiser an elected office. So currently this is an employee of the appraisal district that is hired by the board. This would change it where they would have to be elected. Some of the other ones for sales tax, interstate sales tax source to location where item is stored. If I live in El Paso, I can tell you right now that is really important because there is an Amazon distribution center. So basically all the taxes would stay within El Paso instead of where the final shipment of the item went. So you do have some cities who are fighting strong for and against this one. We currently don't have any 380 agreements, but that one is on there as well. Another big one, and I know Heather Yaden had discussed this during our first strategic plan prioritization meeting, and this one is important to follow. It's on my top list as well, is House Bill 550. It's the use of local hot occupancy tax funds to be spent on certain circumstances, including infrastructure and parks. So this one is really interesting. It is a very short bill. It's like I'd say 2 pages at most, but it is very specific, especially on the park side and some of the infrastructure side. It has to be within a certain mileage of a hotel. So the primary, if you're going to do a park or you're going to make improvements to a visitor center, it has to be within 1 mile of a hotel. We're kind of lucky because they're all spread out right along our main, so everything counts. Infrastructure, you can use up to 20% of hot revenues for infrastructure repairs in areas where hotels are connected. So for instance, we've had issues and the city has put money aside for the Holiday Inn lift station. It is within 1 mile of the Holiday Inn hotel. We would be, if this bill passes, be able to use hot funds to make that improvement to that infrastructure. So this is another one of those really important. If you're looking at the east side of Alpine and not having sewer infrastructure in place, and you have the Holland, you have Quality Inn, you have, there's one more, can't think of the name of it right now. Travel Lodge. All along that area, you can replace infrastructure within 1 mile. That would be that would just be wonderful for the city of Alpine to be able to use hot funds to make those type of improvements. It has to pass. So one of the ones that I will keep monitoring to see if it does pass. or if they come in and they make any changes to the actual House bill. Hopefully they won't. If they do, I hope it maybe is a little bit more specific, or maybe it widens up our range. But that is an important one to look at. When it addresses parks, it could help improve some of the parks within our one-way. We do have Nipolito, we do have the railroad. These would be additional monies we could use. This one's Gio's favorite, elections. So there's been a lot of movement and discussion on elections, how elections are held and when they are held. Currently, the only way some of these would really affect us is if we went out for debt and needed an election. We would be required to have that election in November. Currently, our elections are held in May. If we made any changes going down the road, we would be pushed into that November timeframe. One of the things that they talk about for home rule cities is our ballot language listed in a petition for an election with the ability to challenge the SOS. It limits the charter petition requirements. So one of the things I know Gio and I kind of secretly behind closed doors mark up our charter and like, hey, this contradicts, hey, you know, grammar error here. Down the road, the city does need to form a committee to update our charter. I think there are several sections that need to be addressed as these types of bills pass that start to kind of provide additional clarification and dictation on how we can do things. I think we need to match with that. So updating our charter would be important. There are things in there like the city can annex. Well, we can't. That needs to be removed. I believe the last revision of the charter was in 95.
2005.
2005, thank you. 10 years off. And it's time. I mean, as we're changing and legislation is changing, it's to make those improvements. It would authorize cities to move, of course, elections to November. They're very simple. Right now, we don't really fall under any of these updates, but eventually we could. And then another big one is open government. They are looking at new video conferencing requirements, expanding the meeting notice requirements for our city council meetings, our board meetings. Of course, the penalties associated with Public Information Acts, that's also kind of being addressed. Another one that was listed is use of a local paper. They're pulling away from having cities required to post in a local paper and going more on a internet electric format. I think cities are all kind of advancing that way. I think it's important when we look at things like that, that we address all of our residents. We do get a, I didn't know, wasn't in the paper, wasn't on the radio, wasn't on the website. So I think ideally we would want to keep moving forward and utilize everything. The good side to that is if we were to miss, we wouldn't be penalized. We are required to provide the notices in the paper for, of course, our tax rates and our budgets and, you know, any ordinance changes we make. And, you know, having that documentation is important. But if we were to miss a date, we wouldn't have that kind of penalty or moving everything down a couple of weeks to meet it. One of the big ones that is being discussed is paid sick leave for first responders for up to a year, plus disease presumption expansion. The reason this one is kind of a big deal is the liability it places on cities. This would be large liabilities. So they're looking into that and monitoring that one more. Community censorship. This is the absolute big one on TML's plate. Cities can't hire lobbyists or join organizations that lobby. If this one passes, we cannot be a member of TML. So TML not only helps us when it comes to legislation, TML also provides a huge amount of resources to cities, including legal, workman's comp, health insurance guidance, property insurance. They're just a wealth of information. They've built up a great organization that you have the majority of cities members of. If this was to pass, that membership would no longer be allowed. So I'm hoping that this one doesn't pass. We have used them I've used them time over time. I ask them random questions, and then they call and laugh at me. No, you can't do that, but it's there. So this is all of the ones that kind of are important through TML. This is definitely a small fraction of all the ones coming down. But these are all being monitored not only by TML, but the ones that I think have a great impact on the city. I'm also staying on top of those. And then just a kind of a shout out to everyone who attended our first meeting. It was a great first meeting. We did discuss why we need to prioritize, the need for plans and steps for each of the concerns, and then how everything kind of ties together. You can't do one without the other, and why they're all important. Infrastructure is at the top of the list. Things that were discussed is like rate studies, needs assessments, inventory, cost to maintain. These are all hard because we've never done it. To truly know what it would cost to maintain, you truly have to know what your assets are, what's in the ground, what do you have inventory. It kind of all ties in together, and so you need them all at one time. Employee concerns did come in second. Benefits, pay rates, long-term benefits, your retirement. Without the employees, you can't repair your infrastructure. It just kind of snowballs down. And then, of course, our next meeting is Thursday, January 26th at 5:30 in council chambers. We're advertising it for council chambers. That's how we have been advertising it. But the mayor and I are both hopeful that we'll have to pause at the beginning of the meeting and move to the Civic Center because there will just be a wealth of people here. And then one more, the gas department. They are currently in training. That is why they are not here. They are required to be fully trained every 3 years. So they are all in attendance. They started yesterday. But Randy did want me to update you that they have completed their DIM projects for 2022. These are the ones that are required under the Railroad Commission. It's really important we get these done. The 2023 projects will be released and addressed in March of 2023. That's when all of their numbers go into the system. It does its little calculation. They have discussions, prioritize, and then our gas department will get the list of, okay, this is what you really need to address. And then the pictures, really excited. We have installed, I shouldn't say we, they have installed the new city gate regulators in Alpine. These are what failed at the beginning of last year, getting all the parts in and having the time because they still had to do their DIM stuff. They just went out there, got it installed. You'll kind of notice it's got the two. So there's kind of like a backup. They're so eager. They were just so excited about how this all played out. They monitored it for a few days. Everything's been holding. The pressure is the same no matter where you're at in Alpine. And that was a big deal for them because some parts would, have a certain percentage, other parts may be a little bit higher. But this is holding the whole system of Alpine at the same pressure levels. They have all of the stuff to do Fort Davis. They've kind of started on that project. They backed off. They don't want to gung-ho it with the weather getting a bit colder and then they lose the system and they not have gas. So they're waiting until our winter season. You look at the revenue, it's not really winter. We've had a warmer winter, but once it kind of dies out, they're gonna continue with that project. It's a lot of information, guys, but I really wanted it to get out there. The legislation is a big one. They have until May 23rd of this year. So what gets approved and doesn't get approved. And if you received a letter, I believe one of our senators has sent out a letter requesting, hey, what do you want us to discuss? What bills do you want us to focus on and support and not support? I will be following up with each of you guys, but it's really important. As they pass down laws, we do have to follow those. And sometimes it requires us to change our own ordinances to be in compliance. And sometimes it requires us to go, oh, where do we get the money for this one? And how long do we have to do it? So last year was a little crazy with the 3 different sessions. It was a little harder to keep up with all of them, but we did. So I wanted to make sure this year we stayed on top of it right out the door.
The legislature, being a Republican-led legislature, looks at cities were sort of the least favored group in Austin. All the big cities are blue, and so they they always take every chance they can to sort of restrict powers of cities. They've been doing it for 2 or 3 sessions, and I anticipate they'll continue to do it this session.
All right, so let's move on to city staff update. Public Works, Ed?
We did have a couple of videos set up for you, but unfortunately, we don't have them, so we're just gonna show you some slides. Just go over 4 of our major projects we did for last year. Starting off with the pool, last year, we went ahead, we paint our swimming pool every 2 years, but last year, we went ahead and sandblasted it, painted it. And this year is the first year we didn't drain the pool, so the pool's full of water. Megan wanted to go to see how that goes. A lot of cities, they do keep their water year round. We do get our residuals every day. We vacuum the pool at least once a week. So by doing that, you know, next year come May, our pool will be ready to go. We don't have to, you know, go through all that of leaks and waiting for the pool to get full and stuff like that. So we're gonna go with that. Our creek projects, this is one of our main projects we do every year. Unfortunately, we like to do it at least twice a year, but you know, us being short staffed, we only got to do it once this year. This is one of the over there close to Brown and Phelps Street. As you can see right there, that water is every time that lady called me and she was very concerned, like, hey, I don't have a backyard anymore. But we're fixing to address that with back a few years back, the city used baskets full of rocks. You could see it all over the creek, close to over there by the county jail and all that. So that's what we're gonna do right there. Hopefully that'll eliminate that problem. And then over there, if you on Avenue A between 5th and 4th Street, have you guys noticed every time it rains, it washes out pretty bad? So we're gonna do that as well. This is one of the videos we had for you, but unfortunately, like I said, that's just us cleaning the creeks. So the next thing is we maintain the water treatment roads and the Muskies Road, the burn around the airport. Again, that's just showing you the end results of it. That's right where we got. Again, that's another thing that we would like to do at least twice or even 3 times a year, but with our staff right now, it's unfortunately we can only do that once a year. Finally, our street paving. That's just us. This is just to let you guys know how we do our patching, our big patches with our hot box. We heat up our asphalt, our patching material up to like 300 degrees, make sure it sticks. Turns out pretty good. That's the end result. We did a lot of training last year for our seal coating. We had some staff leave and we did, this is one of the patches we did over there on Fighting Buck when we had that big rain. So just to let you guys, we shot from CRS2. We patched it and then we seal coated it. So that's basically how we do. This is what we're doing our seal coating. That was another video we had for you guys, but you know, that's just like I said, we had some in-house training because we had 2 of our staff leave, so we're done with that. We're good to go. And that's just some other pictures of us seal coating, as you can see. You know, back in I got 5 guys in my crew, and now 1 just left, so it's 4 or 5 with me. Back in last year, we did 22 blocks. The year before that, we did 30. Back in 2000, when I came in, I had a crew of at least 7 guys, 2 seasonals, 10 with me, and we actually did 102 block seal coating. So just to give you an idea of where we're at, I know that your main concern is streets. Everybody's concerned about the streets, but you know, with that short staff, I mean, that's all we can do, you know. I know that we got a quote last year for 26 blocks that really need completely redone. Unfortunately, it totals out to 500,000. But since we did, I think we did 100,000 last year on the Country Club Estate roads. I was, you know, maybe we should consider at least do another 100,000 on these 26 blocks. It might cover maybe 2 or 3 blocks, but at least we can go forward with that. And then us doing our seal coating while we get staffed. Because I mean, again, this 26 blocks, they're completely shot. We can't seal coat or anything. But moving forward, till we get staff, I know that you guys, it was brought to my attention by Megan that you guys want to go back to paving streets the way we used to refurbish the streets. But again, it comes down to the staffing. You know, we would average like 30, 35 blocks a year doing that because we have to take time off to obviously do our work orders and all that. So, you know, you might consider doing that. You know, we last year for our seal coating, we went through at least pretty close to 60, 70,000. So I don't think that would bother us because I think we have a budget this year of 300,000. We're going to use 100 Country Club Estates. Why not use this 100 to refurbish some of these streets? And then the other 100 we can use on seal coating. I think that's for now, that's something that we need to consider. Again, it all comes down to short staff. Yes, it'd be nice to have at least 10, 12 guys, you know, so but I think we should consider that for now, because if not, these 26 blocks are just going to turn into 30 or 40 blocks. And by the time, I mean, yes, this is a big price for those 26 blocks, but you know, material and everything's going up. We don't want to get, you know, we don't want to get caught with having to do 30, 40 blocks completely redone, and then, you know, it's going to be, so I think we should consider that.
When does paving season start?
We like to start in March. Unfortunately, again, with our crew staff, last year we took off in June.
So if we're gonna do something, we need to do it now so that we could get. with the
Yes,
contract. Do you have a list of those streets or?
yes,
blocks?
I do. I can get them to you. And again, maybe 100,000 would probably do 2 or 3 blocks, but that's something like, you know, I talked about our 5-year plan the last time I was here, that, you know, we were to do at least 25 blocks yearly, and then we could do at least another 70 block seal coating. You know, that would give us 100 blocks at least a year completely redone. At the end of 5 years, we'd have 4 or 5, you know. But again, that's, we would have to budget a bigger budget. You know, other than that. But I think, like, again, if you guys would consider doing that, I think going forward, that's for now, I would advise us doing that. Again, with that $300,000 budget, we're going to use another 100 at Country Club Estates next year. So why not use 100 on the streets and then the other 100 on seal coating? And you know, I know that you guys probably hear a lot from your constituents as far as work orders, like, hey, I called twice and it hasn't been done. I think the last time Megan looked into it, we did something like 700 work orders in the span of 3 months. So we're doing the best we can with 4 guys, 5 including me. Most of the time, I do work with my crew every day, but if I'm not in meetings or doing reports or other, it's just them 4. So hopefully you guys can be patient with us, and we're doing what we can. helping other departments, maintenance, so. That's pretty much it.
Any
Y'all are-
questions?
Y'all are doing awesome. Please tell your
Thank
crew
you.
that we do appreciate it, and we do see that y'all are out and about. And it's wonderful that you help other departments, and keep it up.
Good.
I
Thank you.
second that, Eddie.
Thank you.
Have we got any new construction of city blocks this year by the contractor?
Country Club Estates, that road,
How many miles or?
it's not miles.
Oh,
Um,
No, it's probably like a half a mile,
half a mile?
yes. And I guess our plan is to do that yearly till,
Until the streets put basically into a maintenance program.
I mean, we just finished, as of today, doing a patchwork out there, so we patched, pretty much all the way to the main roads. It did cost us at least, $6,000 to do that, but that's another thing, we might consider, I talked to Megan, maybe doing, if we're gonna continue to do that, if we want to follow that, maybe consider doing 200,000 at a time instead of one. Because the road is, I mean, I think we paved that road back in early 90s, and we just paved it. We never seal coated it. It's a flat road. It's not crowned. That's the main reason that it wore out pretty bad. So that's another thing that we might consider as well, because if we would have done the 200 last year, what we patched today would have already been paved, part of it. So, and I know it's my understanding, you said that you guys decided to go with just 100,000 at a time, and it's not much, but it's something. So you might consider that as well. I mean, we'll be out of there faster doing 200 at a time instead of one, doing a mile instead of half a mile. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Doing a good job for what you had to work with.
I'll send
Absolutely.
council that list of streets that he looked into.
Thank you. Okay, environmental services, Adelina.
Good evening. Okay, so I'm gonna do the presentation for environmental services. First, I'm gonna talk about the recycling center stats. Next, the high school demo project. 2022 monthly bulk pickup, illegal dumping abatement totals, and keep up on beautiful update. So far, since October, here are our recycling center stats for Alpine residents. 71% of visitors, and for outside the county, 29%, averaging 335. City of Alpine and 138 outside City of Alpine. This is the total drop off since October for each of our items. We have one part-time tech position open, and we have a contract employee, Ms. Karen Cantrell, for 6 months. She's helping us out there in the center. And then also we have the recycling center winter schedule. We'll open Thursday through Friday, 9 to 2 p.m. and Saturday, 9 to 4 p.m. Once we have full staff and the weather gets nicer, we'll be open more hours to the public. Also, back in September 08, we had a electronics pickup and we recycled 0.72 tons of electronics. This is the landfill numbers. So far since September, the total amounts on C&D tons and municipal solid waste. Next slide. These are the total recycled since September till December. Total of 197.38 US tons, approximately up 9.86 days of landfill space saved.
That's really important.
Next slide is our bulky center halls. We started collecting trash for free for residents, and we keep track how many hauls per quarter. After 9 hauls, they cost money and disposal. So this is the information in those two spreadsheets. The next one is the Alpine High School project demo project totals for the year. Imperial Construction and Robles Construction. Okay. This slide is bulky pickup and illegal abatement totals for the year. You can see the number of calls, the tonnage for bulky, the abatement orders for illegal dumping, the total yardage in tons. Also for abatement, after 100 cubic yards, they start charging per cubic yard. For Keep Up on Beautiful update, we have a community outreach at the career fair, Workforce Solutions at Salt Ross. This was kind of last minute, but we did a really good setup for the students coming in through to the Gallego Center. And we had like a little game for them, and it was really fun and interesting. Also in September 24th, we had a community cleanup at Medina Park. Total trash collected 140 pounds. Had a lot of kids volunteer. Our next cleanup in October 15, it was Coconut Lodge. It was fall sweep #1 event. We had a lot of volunteers, and 350 pounds of trash were cleaned around the lodge and the creek. Fall sweep in November 5th, it was downtown sweep. We trim all the trees along the main streets and collected trash. Approximately 2,000 pounds of tree limbs, 2 trailer loads were hauled to the recycling center, and 150 pounds of trash were collected. We had a community service event November 12th. We worked with the Big Bend Conservation Alliance and Salt Ross, and the Big Bend Conservation Alliance got the Apache trees donated for the senior center. We planted 12 native trees along their property. Also, we did education and outreach with Salt Ross Environmental Geology class in November 15th to the 17th. The students visit the landfill, the recycling center, and the wastewater treatment plant. And it was really good in attendance, but also really good information for the students. One of those students applied for an internship at the recycling center too, or wants to apply. Also, our last community cleanup of the year was December 17th on the north centers of town. It was really cold. We didn't have a lot of volunteers, but we did collect 100 pounds of trash. And our next community cleanup is this month on the 28th, the last Saturday, and we're gonna go ahead and clean up the cactus garden across McDonald's again from 9 to 12. And then also, like our city manager said, we have new monthly book pickup magnets. The schedule, you can pick it up at the recycling center or city hall, and it'll be really handy to remember the dates to call and when the pickup starts. Also, a reminder, our next pickup for February 2023, call to schedule a pickup, call the January 30th to Friday, February 3rd before noon. And we have to call the TDS number listed. And the last slide is just information where we can be reached and where all this information is located.
Yeah, thank you for everything you're doing.
It's up there when people pay their bill.
Yes, and we have some at the recycling center. Just ask one of the techs.
Karen, could you do one when I was there?
Yeah.
And we've been selling them in bookmarks too.
That's a great idea. There's nothing wrong with that.
We had a gentleman ask, what's be a good bookmark? I'm like, sure will.
Yeah.
$10.
Worked well.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other questions?
No.
All right,
Thank you.
we'll have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you
Thank
for everything you do. All right, so we have no public hearings. Let's move on to the consent agenda. City Secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's consent agenda has 4 items. Item 1, approval of January 3rd, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Item 2, approval of the excused absence of Councilor Rodriguez from January 3rd, 2023 regular city council meeting. Item 3, approval of the appointment of Cindy Purdue to place 5 in the music focused events position on the Music Advisory Board. And item 4, approval of the appointment of Rick Ruiz to the place 2 or musician position on the Music Advisory Board.
Okay, I need a motion.
I so move.
I need a second.
Second.
Let's vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, passes unanimously, the consent agenda. All right, let's move on to information or discussion items. Number 1, Animal Advisory Board update by Chair Patsy Colvin. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. So I am the chair of the Animal Advisory Board, and if I could get to my first slide. Talk a little bit about, next slide, please. This is our advisory board members. As you can see, we have a fairly consistent group. I have probably been on the Animal Advisory Board. I wish I could remember. I was just sitting there trying to remember. I think 4 or 5 years, and we've been very consistent. We do have 1 vacancy, and Councilor Rodriguez, it's for your appointment. So hope you find somebody great. We're very collegial. We get along well, and so I'll leave that out there. Next slide, please. I'm not going to talk necessarily about what we did in our 4th quarter. I'm going to talk about what we did in the whole of 2022. Ordinance reviews. I think you all may not remember all the ordinances that came before you, but the first one was impoundment and destruction. It was passed in 2019, but it lacked a second reading. So we had another opportunity to visit it, and we got some Texas state law in there, and it was subsequently passed along with tethering. We updated that, which it was aligned with Texas state law. And then our dangerous dog ordinance, we wrote that probably 2 years ago, and we had an opportunity to use it and see where it needed to be updated. So we did find that no dog needed to be deemed a dangerous dog if the dog was responding to pain or injury or was protecting itself, its owner, custodian, or member of its household, kennel, or offspring. So that managed to pull that together a little bit better. Animal registration, we did that in September. We changed the location for transfer of animal registrations from city offices to animal shelter, and we did increase the annual fee then. Next slide, please. We did have a couple of discussions, and I kind of wanted to talk about them a little bit. We talked about a spay-neuter ordinance. We talked about whether or not it was probable or could happen. Jennifer brought us quite a few different ordinances for spay-neuter, which took us off into another direction. And in May, we had a kind of a presentation from Janine Bishop with the Alpine Humane Society that talked about the human animal support system. I have to say that very slow because I'll get tongue-tied. Talked about various elements, which also spurred Jennifer and I to go back and look and see what elements we actually were doing here in Alpine. And on the next slide, you'll see we're doing quite a few. There's 11 elements for the human animal support system. And I have HAS and it should be HASS. Who knows? A full HAAS transformation moves shelter from being a collector of animals to the connector of animals. And that's more of a community services animal shelter or services. And doing 9 out of 11 made us feel pretty good. The one that we want to focus on is the foster-centric model. I think most of you know we do quite a bit of transporting of dogs out of the area, and all of the receivers ask, has this animal been in a foster home? Has it been in a foster home with other animals? And talking about volunteering, there's a perfect opportunity. So we're hoping this year that we can get a few more fosters and get a little more attention. Now, that isn't just dogs, there's cats too. Last year, we transported 54 cats from the area, but we don't have to transport as many. About 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, y'all passed the feral cat management ordinance. And to date, we've done 600 cats in and around Alpine, 800 total if you include Marathon and Marfa. And that means today we have exactly 2 homeless cats in the shelter right now. So I thank the council for supporting that. TNR actually works, trap, neuter, and return. I know we still see cats out there, but you see cats with ear tips and you aren't seeing cats who are just reproducing willy-nilly. So I did want to point that out. We know 2023, we have some objectives, and thank you, council, for pointing those out to us. We'll be continuing doing ordinance review. We're going to focus on registration and leash compliance, and informational public service announcements for the utility bill insertion. And I understand the donation project is pretty well underway, but we're going to visit that at our next meeting. And then the wildlife management efforts about relocation or mitigation. I do want to point out that our high school is called the Alpine Bucks, so we always have to keep that in concern. We're ready to go and we're interested in doing all of that. On January 10th, we had our first meeting and we did consider the animal kennel permitting process, and we will be looking at that at our next meeting, and it will be coming your way. So any questions for me? And let me also point out, we are still doing PSAs on the radio. Last year we did quite a few. I kept hearing nice things about it. I'm hoping to continue to do them this year. Any questions?
Doing a great job.
Yes.
Well, you help.
I
do enjoy seeing it.
any better either.
I do enjoy seeing on Facebook, when animals are adopted. That really is.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
I really enjoy seeing. that.
Jennifer
Thank you
started
for
doing that regularly, and
Mhm.
we are getting a lot of good comments about it. We're also trying to make sure that we get every one of those adoptions. Sometimes they get out the door, but we always circle back if we don't get a picture of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you
for
do.
your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to information discussion item number 2, discuss the addition of a stop sign or yield sign on North 8th Street and Avenue A. Councilmember Stokes.
Okay, I've had several of the neighbors over there. They had that wreck on, and I wrote it on my notes on my phone, that wreck at 8th and A. And if you drive from and I've discussed this with Daryl, if you leave the police station, you don't stop again or be asked to stop till you're Valley. But if you get on the other streets, 9th, 10th, 11th, you have to stop. Somebody has to yield, somebody has to do something. And the complaints I'm having is that, if you leave, if I leave in my little Buick, the PD, I can hit about 65 miles an hour by the time I hit was where this wreck was, because there's nothing to slow you down. So they want something there. I've discussed it with Daryl, and I just wanted to put it out there that if there's other roads, people need to speak up so that we can see if there can be some stop sign, a yield sign. They're also saying because of the way they've routed everybody from the school, now everybody is right there by their houses. Going 100 miles an hour. Why? Because there's no stop signs or yield signs. So if Daryl could put up a BB thing or hire somebody to stand there and
Daryl's actually already started working on it, and it has some recommendations, not only for stop signs along that area of 8th and 7th going that direction,
right.
but also some speed limit decreases. He was gonna finalize getting the list of all the accidents, so you had some supporting documentation and then a traffic survey. So I kind of did a follow-up with him, like, hey, let's get it as an action.
I called him months ago.
He's been working.
I
on it.
know he has. So thanks, Daryl. Because I really think it's needed. If you go by and look at that guy, I saw it right after it happened. And if somebody had been going a little bit faster, they would have gone right into his house. And it worries all of them at all of those blocks. I've talked to other people at other blocks.
So there's
They've
some
gotta be
concerns
all
on
over
7th.
town.
Yeah, 7th Street's also vocalized some concerns as well. When
So I don't know. And then some of them going crossways. There's no way to. They're stopped on the big streets, but not the side. So I don't know. I don't know who set all that up, but I don't like it.
Well, he has several recommendations, 4 four-way stop signs at various intersections, and then reducing the speed in several areas as well, including around the.
Thank you, Daryl.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, All right, so moving on to information or discussion items. Number 3, discuss the impact of cutting streets for new service requests, including processes, procedures, cost to the city, impact fees, and other pertinent information. Councilmember Tandy.
Well, I was visiting with Megan, I guess I've done this several times. I was just kind of concerned about, the cutting of the streets, I like to run on, in my ward, and of course, on Fort Davis Street, I noticed that we finished that road, and then they put 2 houses there, and we cut the road. So we take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. And I was kind of concerned about, who pays for all this? Who does all of this? Who repairs all of this? What is the fee for the builders? Do people who decide to build a home know in advance that they're going to have to pay this fee? Or if somebody's going to develop the property, do they understand that they're going to have to pay a fee? And how much is the fee? Are we going to tier the pricing of this? I was a single mom, moving into my home. Luckily, I didn't have to, access the road to get to my utilities. Everything was in my alley. But what if it's not? Who pays for all of this? And how do you know? Do you know in advance what you're going to pay? I mean, who sets all of those standards? So I was kind of curious about what are we going to do every time that we, fix the street, and then here we go, tearing it up again. Yeah. That's, that was one of my concerns, and why I got onto council was because, I did hear a lot of people talk about our roads and how are we going to repair them, but we repair them and then we destroy them. So what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this is my question.
So impact fees are kind of, well, they're not a new thing, but more and more cities are going towards them because of that exact reason. The long-term impact of a development, a new house, a new business, how it affects the utilities, how it affects the roads. There is guidance, and in the packet, which was available online for the public as well, the main important document would be that legal questions and answers. This is a TML document, hence why they are so important. So state law under the local government code, chapter 395, does allow us to implement impact fees. But there are some criteria in order to do this. One of those criteria would be to create a committee that would actually kind of create a capital improvement plan. And this is specific to development. They would also kind of dictate and outline land use. What is the land going to be used for? This ties a lot into our planning and zoning. And, what do we have zoned, and is it commercial, residential? How do we develop it, and how do we grow? So the first step, of course, would be for the council to approve creating a committee to look into this and determining what our CIP would be, what our land use would be, and then actually start assessing and applying impact fees. Now, I know a lot of people are concerned, you're like, well, it's just a single family residence. I don't want to pay the same as a developer who's putting in 30 new homes. A lot of cities have gone to a tiered impact fee. And what this does, it provides an actual look at what road would cost, what water would cost, what wastewater would cost. And it would be basically, that's a mathematical formula. Every city kind of does it a little bit differently in regards to square footage or maybe usage, type of land use. But it wouldn't be the same for everyone. So not everyone would have a road impact fee if they're not impacting the road. New developments would have a road impact fee because it's a new development with most likely new roads. It is something that the council, I'd say probably 5 years ago had brought up as part of discussion, and it wasn't really taken to the next level. I think if we're looking at our city and we're looking at the long-term growth of our city and development, and we want more people in, we also have to look at that impact. I think it would be beneficial for the city to move that direction for an impact fee with a tiered effect. And that would be something that, as it grows and as it changes and council approves, disapproves, and looks into it, it's all there on the website. So when someone comes in and says, hey, I want to build a new home, it's not, what am I paying for this? What am I paying for that? It actually provides, a single resident home and then outlines all of your fees, your permitting fees, your impact fees, any additional fee that can come with it. And it's hard because I know that the council's done really well with trying not to add more fees and not trying to like gouge the residents. But at the same time, you have new developments coming in that have a huge impact on our infrastructure. I mean, prime example, and I brought it up in the strategic meeting, we pave a beautiful road or we seal coat a beautiful road, and then someone picks that one lot in the middle and says, I'm going to put a house there, and now we're tearing up that road. That's an impact on our community and on our roads.
Well, there's two in that beautiful Fort Davis Road. I mean, it was beautiful, and I mean, and there's two now. And that's why I was kind of concerned about
And
this.
couldn't these fees be given to Eddie to hire more people to help him?
I think you can regulate how the fees are used. The state law does make it kind of specific in what
Right.
they can be used for. I'd really have to do a little bit more research on how we can use them. It's not just one of those that goes into a general fund pot and you use it for whatever. There are some restrictions. This is all guided by the
If we
state.
could dump it somewhere, we could pull from somewhere and get him some more help.
And it's also for future planning. So the money's being put aside for these types of projects. And it's for Eddie's team to go in and pave a huge section, or maybe it's money putting aside for infrastructures to start replacing. So it's not only just the short term, but the money should be ideally saved for long term and future development.
I think we need to keep in mind, though, that it's the city ourselves too that are putting up a lot of these.
Yes.
They're breaking up these roads. So it's not just. I guess I'm saying, before we start the process on that, look into just how much of it we're doing on our own. Because we're doing a lot of that, with our infrastructure being what it is. We pave the road and then we got a leak and we got to tear it up.
I definitely can get you a list of all of our new services. Because we do have all those work orders.
Just so that we'd have an idea of just exactly who it is that's tearing these up.
Any other discussion, comments?
I do want to ask one more thing, when you do decide, oh, I'm gonna build a home or whatever, you decide that, and then you're charged that impact fee or a fee, I'll be honest, I didn't know if I was gonna be charged that fee or not, because my contractor didn't, of course, tell me. So there is some ignorance to it, so my question is, how do those people actually know that they're going to be charged this fee? I mean, does it state it on the permit? Does the contractor, is he responsible enough to tell the person, this is because we're going to have to dig here, or we're not going to have to dig, that's one of my other concerns is, do they know? Do people know? How do they know?
So last year, we put in new procedures and processes for TAP assessments for water, wastewater, and gas. That provides all of that information, including an estimated what it would cost you. The hardest part with the estimate is the square footage. If you have to have an extension, it depends on how big of the extension. So it's $25 a square foot. And of course, gas has theirs, water has theirs, sewer has theirs. Depending on the actual build, it may be a commercial that's explained to them in that process. So the first step is to get the TAP assessment. That is still the hardest thing when we have residents who look at property, is they want to do the last step before the first step. So our utility department, our water department, and our permitting, Jessica, they've been working really hard with contractors. They're updating their website constantly, like step one. Unfortunately, we have residents who buy manufactured homes or mobile homes, and they'll move them in on a lot, and there are no services. Or it's a $70,000 extension to get from 2 blocks over to their property. Unfortunately, there was probably a reason why the home was never built there. So they're they're at the step 4 instead of the step 1, so it's going back and working with them to get them to understand and trying to help them, alleviate those extra expenses.
Okay.
But you're right, it is very hard when you go to build or purchase, like, what do I need to do first?
Mhm.
And so our building official and our permit tech they've really stepped up that.
I mean, because I was there, so I understand that frustration and it took so long. So, okay. Thank you for answering all that.
Anything else?
And I'll get those numbers for you.
Okay, so information or discussion, item number 4, discussion regarding the behavior of the city attorney, including comments made to the media, taking action without authorization of the council or city manager, and other performance issues. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes. On December the 14th, there was an article at the Big Bend Sentinel in regards to the Dollar General proceeding and where we were on that. There were a few comments on here made by our city attorney that I was a little bit uncomfortable with. Some of those are, according to Alpine City Attorney Rod Ponton, the city could not legally deny the replat or refuse to issue a building permit for the location. Another comment made by the city attorney was the city's hesitance to issue a building permit had already placed it on the wrong side of the law, Ponton said. Now, the one is that cities can't block legal businesses doing legal things on private property if they're otherwise complying with zoning and setback and building standards. Dollar General was operating within the bounds of the law. I don't know how you all took it, but to me, it's like he's putting the blame on the city, that we put ourselves on the wrong side of the law by refusing to issue a building permit. Another thing that he said was that he had sent a letter explaining that the city had taken no action on the replat request and did not wish to issue a permit. Dollar General responded threatening legal action against the city. He also said if it taken to court, the city would not have had a leg to stand on, legally speaking. My question to our city attorney is, who authorized that letter to be sent to Dollar General stating that we would not be issuing a permit, thus putting us on the wrong side of the law?
The, every comment I made in every comment that was quoted in that article was also backed up by a city attorney memo that I prepared and went over at length with Gio and Megan, and then submitted to the city, and that was published on the city website. And that letter was, let me finish. That letter explained the law regarding the application of Dollar General and the law of what the city could do, legally do regarding that application. So the comments that were made were just comments that were also made in a published letter that was requested by the city and published by the city as an explanation of the position the city was in regarding a lawful business requesting to build a commercial property.
You didn't
in the
answer my
city.
question, Mr. Ponton, excuse me. You're not answering my question. Who authorized you to send out that letter stating that the city would not be issuing a building permit? If you would just answer that specifically.
Okay, and answer that question. The city had asked me to interface with the lawyer for the lawyers for Dollar General.
When you say the city, can you tell me if that was a city manager or city council? Because I do not remember city council asking you to write that letter. Can you tell me, was it the city manager that asked you to put that, which you knew to be, which you knew to be legally incorrect?
I was asked to deal with this lawyer for the Dollar General. Usually the city has the lawyer of the city dealing with the lawyer for the other side.
Mr.
And that's
Ponton,
what-
I will
let me
ask you.
finish, let me finish. And so when Dollar General wrote me a letter or an email demanding that they be given a building permit, I replied back to them, the city's not going to give you a building permit right now.
Who asked
because-
you? Who
And the
asked you?
reason, and the reason is that the Dollar General, at the time that I wrote that letter to them, the the replat had not been approved, and without a replat, the city could not authorize it or issue a building permit.
Who asked you to write that letter stating that the city would not be issuing a building permit? That is all I'm asking, Mr. Ponton. You've gone round and round and given me answers to questions I have not asked. I specifically just want to know who authorized that letter.
I authorized the letter to respond to Dollar General as the city attorney in responding to the legal request being made by the city, by the attorney for Dollar General.
Mr. Ponton, you work for city council.
All the city
You-
council, unfortunately, I don't work
Let her
just for you.
finish.
You work for city council, you work for the city manager. You don't get to pick and choose what goes out. That decision is made by city council and or the manager. If you will recall, at one of our meetings, I specifically asked you the same question. And you told me that nobody had authorized it and that you were just testing the waters. At that meeting, I voiced my concern and told you that I did not feel you should be doing that, speaking on behalf of the city with something that you knew that we could not legally do. You went round and round with me, and I kept trying to stress what I was trying to tell you, that you don't get to make decisions on your own and send out letters on behalf of the city of Alpine with something that is not legal.
I didn't
You-
say the city would never give a permit. I said the city, at the moment they were asking, I said the city was not going to give a permit at that moment because they hadn't, the application for replat had not been approved.
But you
And
also
the-
knew that the application for replat could not be denied.
They asked for, they were demanding an immediate permit, and the requirements for such a permit had not been met. Why do you want me to tell them that they can do something when the requirements haven't
I
been
don't
met?
want you telling them that they cannot, I don't want you telling them that the city is not going to do something when you know we cannot do it. Maybe we could not do it at that specific moment. But it was not a correct comment to tell them that the city of Alpine was going to be withholding permits. You did not state the city of Alpine will withhold permits until the replat.
I
is-
didn't say the city of
exact-
Alpine was never going to give
Excuse
them
me,
one.
I was in
said
the
that
mid,
city
I
of
was in the
Alpine would do
middle
it.
of something. You did not tell them that we would not provide it until that was approved, the replat was approved. All you said was that the city of Alpine would not be issuing a city permit, which you yourself said was not legal. Your comments made to the Big Bend Sentinel
You don't.
make the city of Alpine look like we didn't know what we were doing. When in fact, it's not council, it wasn't the city manager that didn't know what they were doing. It was you jumping the gun and making statements on behalf of the city council, behalf of the city manager, that you had no right in doing. If you were asked to follow up on where we were, a letter just asking, where in the process are we, is what we were asking you. Or what the city manager was asking. Not once were you told.
Is that what you were asking, Megan?
To be honest, this whole
It's a witch hunt. I know. I'll hush. I have no more comment.
I just don't feel that you should have spoken on behalf of the city. And you know, we had this conversation before. And after that conversation, you go and you put these comments in here. Do you know how many calls I received telling us that city council didn't know what they were doing? That why are we legally putting the city on the wrong side of the law by making comments that we know we can't back up? That why are we not getting advice from our council on what we can legally?
Did you read did you read the legal memo that I submitted to the council and the city?
The legal memo, which that you read.
I wrote a 2-page legal memo about what steps. that
Well,
the city
you don't seem to share those with me.
They were put on the city website.
Oh, the city website. I guess I'm supposed to know that that's where that paperwork is. You see, what it comes down to, Mr. Pond, is that we had this conversation and you yourself were told. You don't get to go and take action by yourself. Council tells you what to do and the city manager tells you what to do. That is the only thing that I want to make you aware. You don't get to choose what you're going to do. You work.
I work for all of the council, not just for you.
I'm not, if any of these council members told you to write it, that is great. Then I will apologize right now. If Ms. Stokes, Ms. Tandy, anybody, if they asked you to do it, if Megan, but when we spoke about this last time, you told me that nobody in council had asked you to do this, and neither had the city manager. That's what it comes down to. I am not going to be embarrassed as council by something that you put in the paper that you were not to do. You need to remember that your job is to advise
Right.
and to do
And my
what you
job-
are asked to
And my
do.
job is to also try to keep the city out of trouble.
Tell you what, a lot of people think that we put ourselves in trouble with your comments to the paper. And if anybody was putting us in trouble, it was you. Because once again, you
The comments in
represented the
paper-
city.
The comments in the paper came from the legal memo that I submitted to the city that was published on the city website.
You know, Mr. Rod, when I make mistakes, at least I'm big enough to
Okay.
know when I'm wrong.
All right, let's move on. Mr. Cotton, I would like to ask if you would make sure that all the council receives emails of anything that's going to be published on the city
Yeah,
website, just so we
I
have
thought, I'm
access. to
sorry,
it.
I thought that was gonna happen when I sent that to Jim.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Published.
That's fine. Just in the future.
And actually,
Yeah.
it would suffice if our city manager knows what's going on.
Okay.
Council
All
per
right, let's
se,
move on. All right, so action items to be accompanied by a brief statement of facts. City Secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. Action item 1 is to approve order 2023-0101 in order of general election for May 6th, 2023 for the purpose of electing 1 Ward 1 council member, 1 Ward 3 council member, and 1 Ward 5 council member for 2-year terms with early voting from April 24th, 2023 to May 2nd, 2023.
Okay, I need a motion.
I so moved.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, so action item number 1 is approved unanimously. All right, let's move on to city council comments. Councilmember Stokes.
Well, I'm sorry Jerry doesn't feel good. I'd like to thank everybody for giving their reports. I'm glad Randy got his city gate regulator. Let's give Eddie $100,000. Figure out how to get him some more employees. Thanks, Adelina. Thanks, Andrew, for stepping up to assist the utilities part. The cross training for backup and merit raises, that's an excellent idea. Excellent. And as always, thanks to Daryl. You know, I'd like to give Daryl an attaboy because I call Daryl with some really stupid things and he goes, okay, then he does it. I like that. Thank you, Daryl. And that's it.
I'd just like to remind everybody that the filing is open now for city council. Want to ask everybody to please get involved to file for some of these offices and help us run our city.
Councilmember Tandy.
Eddie, I want to thank you for all that you do. I know that it is a hard job and I know that this was one of the things that I was really concerned about. And now that I'm on this side, I see the hard work and I see the obstacles put before you. And so thank you so much for working so hard. I do appreciate that. Daryl, I want to thank you and your staff. Y'all are outstanding. I love this town and this town is safe because of you. And I thank you for that. And I want to thank Gio and Megan always, you know, they're always answering my questions and I appreciate both of you tremendously.
Councilmember Sandati.
I hope Eddie can get some FTEs for the street department, because shorthand, it's hard, especially seal coat season around the corner.
Okay, good. All right, and I want to thank Gio for his tremendous amount of work on the website. and for adding things. I'll call him with ideas and he's, sure, I'll get it on there. So thank you for all the hard work that you do. That city website looks phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, go look at it. And the frequently asked questions that you're adding to that. I know that's a lot of work to the mountain of things that you already have to do. Yes, and then also Andrew Devaney for stepping in as interim director of utilities. I want to thank him for doing that. Let's just make sure we don't burn him out. Okay, we can't have him leave. All right, and then also Megan for talking about the charter. The last time the charter was updated was May 7th, 2005. So it is something that we need to look at. It's been a while. Usually it's about every 10 years. And now what is that, 18 years? All right, and then Thursday, the 26th, we have our next strategic prioritization meeting, and we would love to have so many people there that we do end up having to move next door. So spread the word, it's important. And Daryl, as always, thank you for everything that APD does. You have a wonderful police department led by a great leader. And then also Randy and the gas team, I want to thank them for all their hard work. And they also stepped up and helped the water department with their leaks. And then Eddie with Public Works, thank you. I know you're short-staffed. We're trying to get you some employees. And then talking about 26 blocks and $500,000. It's a massive undertaking with just 4 guys plus yourself. So thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. And then, of course, Adelina and the Keep Alpine Beautiful Community Outreach. And then Saturday, the 28th, if you're available, come. You don't have to stay the whole time, 9 to 12. Just come when you can and help us clean up our city. So, all right, that's it. With that, I adjourn.